One, two, three, four.
We're the Vinyl Verdict. I'm Jacob.
I'm Michael.
And today we're talking about a brand new Badfinger release, which doesn't happen too often, but it's been happening a lot this year, and we're very grateful for that. We're covering the I Am Myself Tom Evans demo release, and it's really the first Tom Evans demo release ever. We've had a lot of these from Pete Ham. We're really excited to get some insight into his songwriting. This is primarily during the years of 1967 to 1970, and obviously he did a lot of songwriting beyond that, but this is really focused on kind of that Ivy's turning into Badfinger period. And it's the first Tom Evans release of any kind really in 30 years, because the last one was, Over You, which was released in 1994, was kind of the demos from the end of his life, 1980 to 1983, mostly I think 83 demos, and there was a lot of production and things added to that. They weren't really demos in the sense of it. So here we're getting totally raw, no overdubs, just Tom Evans and a guitar and sometimes a electric or a flute or something like that here and there, but pretty much just completely, into his songwriting and him alone in a room with a Revox tape recorder. So compared to, I think, the Pete Ham releases, these sound very unfinished. Most of these were not ready to record the next day. They were really kind of scraps here and there and shorter recordings that give good insight into Tom Evans' personality and his songwriting style, and also, the difference between what he did at home with a tape recorder and what he would do with the full band when these were recorded. In terms of the makeup, it's kind of interesting. So we have 21 tracks on this release. 5 of them have been previously, I'll say, released in different ways, whether that's on, the Without You bonus disc that came with the book, or on certain things that have circulated, YouTube releases, things like that. So 5 of them have been released. 4 of them are demos of songs that we know the final version of. Those are some of the Ivy's tracks and versions that have come out on like the 94 Baker Street kind of compilations from the Apple period. And then 11 of these are completely new songs. Never heard them before, totally new melodies, new recordings, everything. I'm not counting the reprise of I Am Myself. I'm thinking of that as one song. Just gotten a taste of, 2 or 3 of them here and there. So it's really cool to have a complete window into his songwriting with this. The quality of the recordings is a lot lower than what we're used to with some of the Pete Ham demos, and I'm not sure how much of that is, again, these are earlier recordings, so it might be, I think, as you go back to the Keyhole Street era of Pete Ham stuff, they're a little bit rougher and there's more distortion. But I also think potentially there's maybe some generational loss, that these might be copies of the original master tapes. So there's some degradation just from the time. It's been another 20 years since 7 Park Avenue, right? So if these weren't transferred then, the tapes may have continued to degrade, and they've done a good job of trying to salvage what they can and remove some of the distortion, but his voice sounds a little more distant, and even the double tracking and everything, I think, doesn't have the same closeness that we're used to with some of the Pete Ham demos. So it's really an artifact of, understanding him.
Tommy's voice at its, as we all know it had such warm, beautiful, immediate tones as a lead vocalist, and such, of course, incredible harmony that touching upon the Badfinger era. It's just very interesting. We know some of them, as you said. So you wonder on some of these, because it seems like Tommy did write a lot on acoustic guitar like that, although I know he wrote on piano too, and you just wonder how these may or may not have been developed, but we don't know all that. Judging by Blind Owl, there could be buried gold here and there. But as we said, it's very raw, but really worth listening to. It's
also his transition from the beginning of these 67 recordings. He's playing guitar in the band, and he's more of that rock voice and that influence. And you see that shift as he picks up bass, as it becomes more of a band mentality. It seems like he goes a little more into those like novelty songs and writing for pop influenced stuff and kind of in that direction, and that might be some of the transformation happening too.
That's a good point.
We're still learning a lot of them, honestly. It's a lot to absorb, and we're excited, we're still listening to them, but some of the ones that stand out, so Hello was sort of the single that was released a little bit earlier, and I think the reason for that was it has such clear vocals, so many harmonies, complete lyrics. This one was pretty finished, and it's kind of the Ivy's view of the world as like cartoon characters. So I think that's the reason, and he even has that modulation at the end of it.
I really liked it. Yeah, it just exploded with the youth optimism, early Ivy's. I don't know if Tommy would have even been 20 when that was written or thereabouts. But yeah, love it. All that early energy of life, and hello everything and everybody.
Then the second song, I Am Myself, which was chosen as kind of the namesake of this release. The recording's really rough, but it's a pretty revealing song. And this one was written in 1970, so this is on the verge of maybe the No Dice sessions and all of that. The flute noise is in there. It's got the single kind of a drum or an acoustic hit, so he's developing it. But it's a really beautiful melody. It was stuck in my head, actually. Of everything on the album, it was, it stuck with me a little bit afterwards. And I don't know if the lyrics are even finished in this case, but the concept is there. And it's a pretty self-reflective song, similar to like the When I Say Believe Me era of he's moving away from those funny hello songs, and already on track 2, we're in a very introspective place.
The song does kind of point to the future Tommy songs that were to come yet. It's all there percolating, and really interesting to hear.
That's always what he's so good at. With very simple chords, he makes just these really nice skating melodies around them in places you wouldn't imagine. So it's a good melody he has there. Third song is Our First Night Together. You get the full spectrum of Tom Evans' songwriting already in these first 3 tracks. This is like his party voice, and it's a screaming rocker, and he's on it, imagining his first date with a girl, and it's a fun Tom Evans song, but he had so many of these. Of course, a couple of them had to be left on the cutting room floor. So
yeah, and this would have probably been one of them, but it's fun to hear, his different modes and the vocal styles, which I always loved.
Track 4 is Water Lily, which was previously released on YouTube by the Tom Evans account. Slightly different. I think it might be slightly sped up or, speed corrected in some way, but it's the same recording. Another beautiful melody, and kind of that what is a deeper register, although it's still a middle melody, but it's like the deep Tom Evans voice. Also kind of the melody of That's the Way It Goes, I think, which George Harrison would record.
Oh, interesting.
It sounds a little bit like that to me. 5th song is Goldfish, which they made a little video for, which was cute, and the story around that was given, which is, Bill Collins told them to write a song about everything and everyone, and this was, the one that Tom Evans did, where he wrote a song about a goldfish, his pet. So that's a funny acoustic one.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of an exercise in songwriting, maybe not something he was going to officially release. The 6th song, How Does It Feel, which was a demo for a song that the Ivies would record, and it was released on that Treacle Toffee World CD. It's interesting, this one is like very fully developed, and I was comparing it to the final version. It has all the backing vocals, all the la-la-las. It's got the riff, even on acoustic, that Pete Ham would do on electric. It really sounds like an electric guitar riff. But here's Tom Evans being proficient enough to write it and record it on an acoustic guitar. That's actually probably my favorite Ivy song that was on one of those Apple compilations, so it's cool to have a demo of it. Honey Loving Ways is track 7, again, cool song. Track 8, we have Uncle C, which was previously released.
Yes.
Slightly extended here, I think by a couple seconds, but that's one about Bill Collins, that's from 1970, and you're getting a little more of that soporific Tom Evans writing, a little bit more, and some of the emotion here on acoustic guitar. Track 9, I Should Have Loved You. That's another one that the Ivies would record. It was released on the Golden Delicious demos, which came out. It's kind of the opposite treatment of that other one. Here they added a ton on the Ivies recording. So they added the entire intro and all the segues where they say I should have loved you. That's not actually in this recording. And I think Ron Griffiths sings part of the chorus on the official version. A ton of electric guitar that Pete Ham is adding, a lot of fills. So this one, the unplugged version, is actually kind of revealing the way they interpreted this and added a lot to it. 10th track, we get a demo for Fisherman finally, and it's got a double track guitar and a flute, similar to I Am Myself, which makes me wonder, because Fisherman was released on Maybe Tomorrow, so the demo for Fisherman must be 69, and then does that mean I Am Myself might have been a little bit earlier, or was he using this flute on repeated recordings, like this was part of his demo process, that he would add that in as like a orchestration of how he wanted brass or something else, strings to go on the recording. And it's pretty acoustic on the final version, so the demo is not anything that different, but maybe it gives you a more understanding of the folksy origin of the song, and especially among some of the other tracks in here, you understand where it came from. And track 11 is Dancing Girl. I think there's some bass on here, so Tom Evans, and I didn't see a credit for Ron Griffiths, like he added some bass parts on the Pete Ham demo, so this might be Tom double tracking it, adding bass and doing the acoustic. Track 12, I Don't Want the Bother. I think there's a beautiful melody there. The thing that stuck out is there's more vibrato than he usually adds to things. I think he was really focusing on his delivery and, making that a little more of a ballad than other songs, so that was cool. Track 13 is Handsome Malcolm, which was previously released on a circulated recording, but, this one is definitely cleaner quality, and it's got to be about Mal Evans, I think.
I would take a shot at that and say, yeah, it's the case.
And it's a cool rock song, though, about it. I mean, really cool 60s version of this guy kind of having it all, and maybe something like Joey would revisit on The Winner later on. 14, In My World of Yesterday. This one, my thought, I'm giving you first impressions for the most part here. This sounds like a modern pop song, and just how fast the melody is and everything. It really sounds like top 20 song today, ahead of its time, and just how many notes he's getting in there. And then we get into 15 is the No Escaping Your Love demo. So this is another Ivy's piece. That's pretty cool to have an acoustic demo. That's such a cool song, and obviously there's a version we've heard, like all the different takes of the Ivy's working in the studio on this song, but we've never had Tom Evans' home demo. So that's,
his vocal on that is something special.
Good Times Together, which was previously released.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, from the Without You book. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I would say obviously there was some attention. These were already known, and I think there was a selection in which of these was sort of the most commercial and the most finished. And so we've had tracks like this released before and treasured those already. 17 is The Leaves. This was kind of circulating out there on that Someday We'll Be Known disc, and there are a lot of different versions. Here they picked version 1, which has a lot of Tom practicing the harmonies and really showing off just the way that he would layer on his vocals on this version. 18, the Stay By Me Baby, which is, I think, the only piano demo on the disc. So it shows, again, whereas I think with Pete Ham we get more of a balance of piano and acoustic songs. Tom Evans, for the most part, there were a couple times that he clearly had a piano and wrote on piano. So this is an example of that. Then we got A Simple Song, which is 19. And this is, an example of Tom Evans really stretching out on lead guitar. And not just, writing rehearsed things, but it feels kind of improv. Wine, Women, and Song. This is kind of like a Liverpudlian folk song. So showing that influence, and not like anything they would ever put out. Maybe a little bit like Sing for the Song or something like that. But this is definitely one of the most unique songs on the release. And then we wrap up with a reprise of I Am Myself. Tom Brennan was interviewed recently, and he talked about the fact that there's a lot of scraps out there, and one day he'd like to put those out for Pete Ham and Tom Evans. And this feels like that, right? At the end of one of these reels, maybe there was just a 30-second bit of I Am Myself that was, left over, and maybe, was recorded over or something like that. And I imagine the reason this particular scrap was released is it's just such a beautiful melody, and him playing around with some ideas for the verses and things like that. But even though it's 30 seconds long, it just really shows the potential on top of the fuller version that's earlier on the album. So yeah, I hope we get more scraps like that. I mean, I'm going to continue listening to this, learning these on guitar, and
I hope so too.
Just a pleasure to have. Obviously, once we got into Badfinger, Tom Evans did not produce the volume of recordings that the rest of the band members did, but still such a critical part in the energy of the band, and in these Ivy's days, a driving force for all of their releases and everything.
Yes.
So glad that he's finally getting the credit for all of that, and that these are getting into the hands of the fans. Also, the quality of the CD release is fantastic. Glad that we have the full kind of multi-pack and all of the stories behind some of these songs, and just great effort that's been put in behind this release. And so there's probably more demos in the 71 to 83 period, and hoping that maybe those will get released. Obviously there's been sort of a tragedy with those being stolen recently, and we don't know if they were digitized before that, but I'm hoping this is kind of ushering a new era of getting some of these Tom Evans demos to see the light of day. Great. And we don't know the source of them, right? These tapes might be from Tom Evans' collection himself. These might have been something Matt Avina digitized when writing the book, because a lot of them are referenced in that book, which was published around 2000. Or they might be from, the Bill Collins collection or Ron Griffiths. It's kind of unknown what the source of these are.
Well, I feel very lucky to have this and have these demos to listen to. Love his music, love all of them. And just hope that we will see you soon and have more good times together, which is one of Tom's songs.